Hello, everyone. Jim Coyle with Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Thank you, as always, for listening to our content. But for more in-depth coverage on the Indiana Hoosiers football, basketball, and recruiting news, go to thehoosier.com on 3. Now with On 3 and great national writers like Ari Wasserman, Andy Staples, and Steve Wiltfong for football, Pete Nakos, J.B. Shaw, and Joe Tipton's constantly breaking stories on the basketball side. And the local coverage from Alec Lasley, Kyler Staley, and Zach Browning. You can catch something new every day at thehoosier.com. Go there. Sign up today.
Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by the Hard Truth Distilling Company in Brown County, Indiana.
So for the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world,
pretty simple. I win. Google me.
You know that I'm the cream of the crop.
Oh. Now, from the Hard Truth Studios, here's Jim Coyle.
Welcome back to the Hard Truth Distilling Company Studios on this Thursday. Glad to have you along. Make sure you hit that subscribe, like buttons, no matter whatever social media form you may be following us on. And give me a follow on Twitter, at Jim Coyle, ISB, and at Coach Griff 55 from Hoosier Tailgate, the official football coverage for the Hoosier.com on 3. Been putting out some great video recaps, Coach. Some great stuff on there. For the most recent is the incoming player for Indiana, the most recent commitment, right?
Yeah, kid from Maryland, the Kellen Watt kid out of.
Now he was a linebacker, but he's going to play down, right?
Yeah, he was their stud backer there at Maryland. So he stood up, put his hands in the ground. So he's kind of like Kamara was. He has the ability to stand up, play in coverage, come off the edge. But I think they probably look to put him in the spot that Kamara occupied last year in that mix, because Kamara was moving over to the stud linebacker position. So big kid, about 6'2" and a change, and good thick body, plays hard. I liked how he played his position, because he was conscious about his responsibilities, and that was it. And when he got a chance to go make a play, he usually made it. I think against Indiana last year, he had five tackles and a sack in their game last year. But, I think it was a good solid pickup for him, as well as the young man coming in from Kent State. I think it's Daly.
Yes. Former teammate of CJ West, ironically.
Yeah. And so I think those were two good portal pickups for them. I do think that gives them a solid 2 deep at the 4 positions they need it up there up front. And I think it'll be a great competitive fall camp, because there's a lot of positions there along that front line that are kind of up for grabs right now. I mean, nobody's laid claim to them, so they're going to have a lot of competition. But I do like the fact that they'll probably be able to roll 8-9 guys in a game that can come play. And that's the one big thing about up front, is being fresh and ready to go get it. And I do think they've got guys that fit the scheme that Indiana likes to run.
And not only are they picking up pieces to fill in the places where they lost, and they've done so already quite nicely, to be honest with you. Mm-hmm. You have other guys who were already in the program that are also coming along, one of which is Elijah Hardy, who as a freshman had a pretty good year. 22 tackles, 5.5 of those for loss, 2 forced fumbles, 2 picks, and a sack. So in the defensive backfield, he's back. I mean, he's back along with an All-American in D'Angelo Pons. Indiana, man, that defense is going – is it going to be better this year than it was last year? I mean, I hate to – predictions are stupid, so I hate to ask that question. Can this defense be better than it was last year?
Yeah, I think they should be on par to what they displayed last year. Now, give credit to other Big Ten coaches. I'm sure they're studying up Indiana's defense, this summer because of what Indiana was able to do to them and how they're going to counteract that this year because, the unfamiliar aspect of things for coaches that are going against Coach Signetti and Bryant Haynes and Shanahan last year was a little bit of an unknown until they got some more film on them, throughout the season. And so now all Big Ten schools have plenty of games on them. So they're going to study them up. I guarantee it this fall or this summer to make, see what they like to do. How do they like to do it and formulate some type of initial game plan against them because they can't just say Indiana's just another game on the schedule.
That's no longer the case as
right.
Steve Wiltfong on three's vice president of recruiting and transfer portal with us a little bit earlier. Indiana no longer one of those games, man. Not only is Indiana no longer one of those games, they're the hunter and the hunted at the same time.
Yeah.
They're in a unique position. They're above the fray for pretty much all of the conference until you start bumping up to that elite status with Ohio State and Oregon and Penn State. And I expect Michigan to be back up there again this year. Illinois will be up there. So though there is, but then you have a group that are just tough as nails teams that these games are not going to be easy. They opened the Big Ten season at Illinois. I mean, at home, but versus Illinois. That's a tough opener, baby. That is much different than last season where they opened up on the road, but at a very compromised UCLA team. Not only is that the case, you open up with Illinois, but you get a win there. Pretty confident building there. That's a win over a really good team that I expect will be ranked at the time. I think both of those teams, that should be a ranked matchup when Indiana and Illinois meet because of what Illinois did last season. Indiana having successful seasons. As a matter of fact, Indiana, which will be ranked, will probably play in after their 3 non-con games, their next 3 successive games will all be against ranked opponents. It'll be Illinois, it'll be Iowa, it'll be Oregon with 2 of those on the road. So it gets real fast for Indiana next year.
Yeah, they get thrown right into the grinder. Especially with Illinois, who I suspect will probably be rated ahead of Indiana just from the standpoint they've got a returning quarterback who's very, very good, Drew Altmaier, and Coach Bielema's got a pretty good ball squad like he had last year that kind of lost a little bit of the media accomplishments because of Indiana's season. So that game in itself will be a huge one, as will going on the road to Iowa will be a big one as well. And I do think those 2 games are going to be vitally important to how that propels them the rest of the year, because they will face adversity in those games. And it's going to be like what Coach Signetti always likes to say. How does this team respond when they get punched right in the mouth? Do they bow up and come back and get after it, or do they hide in their shell and, take whatever's given to them? And so that will be the important facet of that stretch of games for next season. And, again, the cat's out of the bag. Indiana's got a good football team. They've brought in really good portal players. They brought in some really good first-year players that are going to have probably significant opportunities this season, either as backups or teams that are getting on the field. They're making strides in the recruiting arena for their foundational aspect. The Olinger kid out of Grandview, Ohio is another one that I did as a freshman 4-star linebacker there that they have gotten already committed. Now we got to get him to December, but there's a 4-star. We don't get 4 stars at Indiana, right? I mean, that's the old adage is that, again, the rankings and such now. So I just think that, like you said, now they've got a little bit of a target on their back from the standpoint of the success that they've had.
Well, the teams that are still elite and I hate to use the word above them, but you have to Ohio State, Penn State, Oregon, you have to acknowledge they are until you beat the king, you're not the king.
Right.
So those teams are up there above, but I do promise you that they no longer look at Indiana as Indiana. Everybody will always say, oh, we take everybody seriously, but you didn't. I was an athlete.
Yeah.
You knew who you were playing, man. You knew if a team sucked, it's almost impossible the mental things that happen to you because the knowledge is inside of there. A lot of times it's subconscious, but that's where great coaches make differences. That's one thing that I think Cignetti does a tremendous job in, and his entire staff. This team, unlike the Pacers, they don't play down to anybody else's level. They play up to theirs. Mm-hmm. As Coach Cignetti mentions all the time, the standard, having the standard, that's every time. You have to do that every time. And you do to be successful. If you don't, then you end up like Alabama ended up last year.
Yeah.
And they did not have the consistency. You can't lose at Vanderbilt, which I know Vanderbilt was a much improved team, but things like that, you can't have those kind of missteps. That's one thing Indiana's been able to avoid in Kurt Cignetti's first season. Can they manage that again in season 2 with a much tougher schedule? And they don't have 8 home games next year. They do have 7 still, but it's other than those non-con games, you've got Illinois, you've got a Michigan State team, which surely, gosh, they're improved. You have UCLA, which the story there is going to be Nico Iamaleava.
Yeah. I mean, they got themselves a weapon now.
Well, do they, though? That's going to be a question. And Wisconsin, the other home game, Luke Fickell in trouble there. Indiana could be the final nail in his coffin. But in UCLA with Nico Iamaleava, the kid that transferred from UCLA to Tennessee is his odds are twice as good to win the Heisman as Nico's. So
yeah,
I just laugh. I'm like, that's funny, but he's getting way too much airtime for being a moron.
Well, he got some bad advice, and I'm assuming,
Papa. Thank you, Daddy. Thank you, Daddy.
Wanting this, and this is the thing again that we're in until this settlement comes about, until we get some guardrails in place and things of that magnitude. We got people in these kids' ears, and they start believing the hype about who they are and how they are. And all of a sudden, because he thinks he's a Heisman Trophy candidate, he wants $4 million. Well, I got news for you. You're not worth $4 million. And that's what the marketplace told him. I mean, that's the whole beauty of it is the marketplace told them you're not worth $4 million.
And if you're plus 8,000 to win the Heisman, you're not really a Heisman candidate.
Exactly. And so he got what he was probably worth, and UCLA
probably plus 10,000 right now.
Yeah. And it probably was about the same amount that Tennessee was going to offer him. And you know what? I think Josh Heupel said, you know what? I've had enough of these parents and not the kid. It's not the kid's fault. It's the dad's fault or whoever else was in the kid's ear. And this is one of the things that these coaches are going to have to deal with now is people in these in the ears of these kids that are giving them bad advice. And they're going to find out the hard way in some respects, because they're not going to be able to hold a Tennessee hostage. So from that standpoint, but look, the Big Ten is going to be ultra competitive. I mean, look, the NIL has changed the landscape of college football. The teams that were naturally not able to gain ground on the upper echelon of a conference can now become immediately competitive because of the portal and what that affords them to do. You look at Indiana, you look at Arizona State, you look at, SMU. I mean, you can just go right down the line of these teams that have not been at the top of the heap in any conference. And all of a sudden, overnight, they became instant contenders. And, Arizona State was a couple steps away from upsetting Texas last year in that game. And so it's just going to be ultra competitive, and the Big Ten will be just as bad, and if not better, in terms of competitiveness this year than it was last year, because these teams realize that you can get good if you find the right niche.
Yeah, because I look, you've got Ohio State, Michigan. I expect Michigan to be back up to being a Michigan type of team. Oregon and Penn State, those are probably the four teams. If you asked a national pundit, that would probably be the top four teams that they would list in the Big Ten, the majority of. I'm guessing, because most of those guys are still going to give, say, Michigan a better shot at it than in Indiana. Even though Indiana beat Michigan last year, made the call, it doesn't matter. They are still viewed as Indiana to a degree. But those are the four teams that probably are seen as being the four that will make it from the Big Ten. But then you've got Indiana, Illinois, Iowa, and Michigan, or whether it's Oregon or whomever, they have to play these other teams as well. Michigan play Ohio State. I don't know all these guys' schedule, but there are other games that have to be played. So Indiana just has to take care of business. That's all they have to do. You can't worry about anything else. You have to win all of your home games without question. You cannot lose a home game. And you have to win virtually all your road games. I'll give them 2 road losses that would be okay to not knock them out, which I already have. We talk about you've got consecutive games at Iowa, at Oregon, and then later at Penn State. Got to win one of those 3. It's just a must if you want to go back to the college football playoffs.
Correct.
Now, you could still lose those 3, be 9-3, and have an unbelievable season, especially for Indiana. It would be one of the few 9-win seasons in the history of the program still. But the fact that we're even able to have this conversation and it's not be complete and total lunacy, it's still amazing to me.
Yeah, I mean, again, I can't remember a time in Bloomington where the excitement about the 2 big sports there, football and basketball, were as high as they've been ever, because they've got 2 teams now that are knocking on the door potentially of, being in the talked in the upper echelon of the conference, and being teams that can, get into those upper echelon field of 64 and so forth in football, be it a high prestigious bowl game or in the college football playoffs. And when you have that ingredient of excitement in the fan base, it turns out to be putting the fans in the seats in Memorial Stadium or in the arena. It's just those things. And like you said, out of those teams that you talked about, Penn State, Oregon, and Michigan, the only team there that has a returning quarterback that has experience is Penn State. I mean, that's the kid that has high enough experience of those schools. Michigan's going to be playing a true freshman, a talented true freshman, but at the end of the day, he's still a freshman. And those are the type of teams Indiana can't allow to beat them. You can't be beaten by a true freshman at quarterback. There's too many mistakes.
Luckily, they don't have Michigan on the schedule this year.
Right. And that's the nice thing that
maybe it's not. Maybe it would have been good to have them on the schedule.
Well, that's true. Well, yeah. But my point being is that there are things in front of them that are very capable for this group to achieve again. And like you said, they have to live to the standard. And they've got the buy-in already. Coach Signetti spent the last 7-8 months last year trying to, get the buy-in, and the only way he was going to get it was wins. And that's what happened. And they got a huge win against Nebraska, and everything changed. And now it's this team's responsibility is to keep everybody at that standard and explain to those that are coming in, be it a portal transfer or an incoming freshman, that there's a standard that we live by here, and you will live to it, or you're going to catch, heck to pay.
Heck
with
to
it.
pay.
Keeping it clean with your teammates. And when you have a player-led team where they're accountable for each other, the guy to the right and to the left and themselves, you've got a ball club that's a group, a family, and when you got that in the locker room, it is a special thing to have. And they went through that last year, and they're going to try to continue to do it this year. And those are the type of teams, man. Don't tell them they can't do something, because they will tell you they can, and they will not believe anything outside of that locker room and Coach Signetti, because they did a great job last year of tuning out the noise when everybody was telling them how good they were, because it could have gone south real quick when they were getting all the pats on the back.
And they deserved it, and we deserve it. We're going to take a quick pause for the cause. Coach Shannon Griffith with us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Jim Coyle along with you as always as well. Coming to you from the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios. Welcome back to the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios on this Thursday. It is a good-looking Thursday. Get out and enjoy it. But I'm glad to have you guys listening to us. Maybe you're getting out and enjoying it and listening to us at the same time here at Indiana Sports Beat Radio. And make sure you support all of our sponsors wherever you are. If you're up in Fort Wayne, Ben Davis Ford Chevrolet. If you're in Bloomington, Andy Moore Honda, wherever, all around, Cheryl Sizemore. If you're looking for a home, especially in the Indianapolis area, Cheryl Sizemore sells at gmail.com. And especially Hard Truth over in Nashville. Man, you don't even need a reason to go there. It's an incredible place to go for a myriad of things. Great place to watch it. What a great place to be during the fall. If you can't be at the football games, that is a place to watch games. And these games are going to be fun. Last year, it was a blast for Indiana football fans, Coach. Because Coach Griffith with us, Shannon Griffith, as always, because they got to see something they had never seen in any of their lifetimes, and that includes the oldest of the old that were there. Indiana to win 10 games, 11 games, to make a college football playoff, to do all of the crazy things that they did last year. After just being a morbid program. Not that they hadn't had some bright spots here and there. They had even had some recently. But obviously, when you're the losingest program in Division I history, your life has sucked. And it went from sucking to not. And it's just such a drastic change. But that is how it should start this year. Last year, they had to build. People were still, not filling the stadium, leaving at halftime, yada, yada. Even with these weak non-con games, now I can see them leaving early out of these non-con games, which I'm sure Coach Signetti will address and talk about. But they're sure going to be a lot more crowded to start off with these things. The tailgating, the atmosphere, the fun, all the things that go with having a good football team.
Well, a couple things. Number one, John, I appreciate you asking about the knee. It's doing well. My knee's doing fine. Still old, but doing well. You talk about these non-conference games. I tell you what, the importance of a non-conference game to the first of the year to get the fans in the seats is very important, because every year you see a group of five type of team beat an upper echelon team they shouldn't. And it happens all the time. And so no matter who's coming into Memorial Stadium, irregardless, a crowd is going to be vitally important to that group of men that are on the field. So that's my pitch for season ticket holders and everything else. So, but you're right. It's a different environment now. No longer is the losing a talked about product about Indiana football because of what they were able to do a year ago. Now, the hardest thing is to back it up. Can you do it consistently? Can it be something that can be achieved year in, year out, or close thereof? That will be the defining question, and that's the one thing Coach Cignetti will have to work with when he talks with his players and the fans and everything else, that it is still an important facet to achieve success. You have to maintain that equal balance, never be satisfied, be where your feet are, so to speak, in Sigisms. But I just think in order for them to duplicate what they've done, it's going to take a yeoman's effort, just because it's now in that little bit of expected zone. I think in years past, people were wanting it to be expected that they would go at least 7 wins or 8 wins and be in a bowl game every year. And I don't think that was wholeheartedly, I don't know what the word is, truthful or not, in terms of the feeling of the fans and such. But now, because they've done it, there's proof in the pudding, so to speak. And now that standard's set, and they'll have to live to that standard.
Heath asked, where did it go? When will IU beef up the preseason football schedule? My response is, when you play a Big Ten schedule in which 5 of the 9 teams are ranked and 3 of those are on the road, I don't see a need to make it more difficult. You're already doing, then forget the ranked teams, then you're playing the unranked conference teams, which there are many times where those guys are just lurking outside of being ranked. So playing 9 Big Ten games out of 12 is a pretty formidable challenge.
Oh yeah.
Don't forget, they only play 8 conference games. So if they do add a more challenging game, they still have these games that they schedule against Troy and against Valdosta State and against anybody else that they can get. It's what teams do. And especially Indiana has done what they have always done, have their 3 non-con games at the start of the season. It's basically a warm-up session. And I get it. You get better because after that 3rd game, well, you get to play a ranked Illinois team. And after that, you get to go to play a ranked Iowa team. And after that, you get to go play a ranked Oregon team. So I think it's difficult enough. It would be nice to see. And maybe one day, if Indiana has this uber level of success, you can do that, because if they start the way the college football playoff, it may morph to change. The non-con games may not matter as much. If they could get these conferences to where everybody is playing 9 games, and you've got a more comparable apples to apples kind of a thing, because when it's 8 or 9 and 9, it's not. It's a huge difference. So if they could, they change that, because there's some things that need to be changed with the college football playoffs. We all know that the seeding is a given, but who gets invited? How many auto bids is the Big Ten and
right,
the SEC going to get? What's that's going to be for? But there's just so much that goes into it.
Yeah. Like I said earlier, once this NCAA lawsuit is settled and the judge,
it's been delayed, by the way.
Well, we're going to talk about that because of roster size limits. Now, the proposal was football to have 105. What they used to have was 125, and the judge wants it to remain at 125, at least grandfathered in for a couple of years.
Yeah, if you're a freshman right now, if you were to be a freshman on any team right now, walk on, judge wants you to be able to have, I guess, a minimum of 4 years before that roster limit. Maybe it's they set up a staggered deal where whatever seniors are on these walk-ons, well, that's how many you go down next year.
Yeah.
And then you do that again, and then you do that again. and then you're at ground zero
Right.
at that point.
Well, and the reason, 20 extra scholarships, because remember, everybody's on a scholarship now. It's quite costly, and it cuts into that $20 million that's coming back to be fed into the programs. So that's an important aspect of things. Now, what I understand is once you get beyond 85, you can give money as you see fit in terms of, okay, we're just going to cover your room and board, or we're just going to cover your tuition. It's not going to necessarily be full rides is the way I'm understanding it. But again, those are things that are to be determined, and hopefully that gets settled here in a week, because the problem is these schools have already told kids to get in the portal. If they're not going to be a part of your program, they're telling kids go in the portal, see what you can find, and get an opportunity somewhere else. And that's a shame that it's that way, because some of these kids are now being asked to leave a program that they've committed to. We'll find out here, and I think that's what they're going to want it to be done. I think they'll come back and be a compromise between 110 and 115 for the roster size limits for football, so that they can phase it out better than being at 125. But we'll see what all happens there. But yeah, there's a lot of things that are coming. And we're just going to have to realize, and the other thing, that freshmen that are not even on your campus can start talking to your collectives and setting up deals with NIL, and that's still in effect. So it's get the gunslingers out, baby, and start firing the bullets and see what you can find. But hey, it's getting closer to college football. It's getting warmer out. We're almost to May. We're getting ready to enter Derby week here after Sunday. And when that hits, you're ready to roll for fall camp here shortly. And that's the beauty of it.
And Indiana has to feel Coach Signetti and staff so much better right now than a year ago. They're going into their second season, and it's like moving to a new house. Now you know where everything is now. Mm-hmm. You got to know where the cracks and the settlements going on, and it's just easier. And they didn't have to fill, he had to build an entire team in essence last year.
Yeah.
This year just had to sprinkle in to make the deficits a little brighter. And I think that they have done that. I we'll find out. We won't know that for sure until they play, but it appears that way. Even though we've talked a lot about defense already, John, they've added the pieces they need to add. So mm-hmm. I see no drop off there. Like I said, not only do I not see a drop off on offense, I think offensively they're going to be a little more difficult to deal with.
Yeah, I do think they've got some different pieces of the puzzle.
Is this true, by the way? Not to interrupt you. Is Kamara moving to linebacker?
Well, he's moving to their stud linebacker position. So that's a hybrid. It's a hybrid of a defensive end and a technically outside linebacker. So they can either stand him up or put his hand in the ground, which he did his freshman year at JMU. So it's not an unfamiliar position for him. It enables them to use him in different ways, where they can really cover him up a little bit and mess with offense's minds on where he is at, as opposed to him being at one spot. So it's an advantage in that regard. So, but yeah, it's one of those things that there's a lot of things that Indiana feels a lot better about. And the confidence is the biggest thing, because he was able to turn it in a year. He still has to bring in, he's already got 22 transfers in for the portal this year. I mean, that's still a lot when you think about it. I mean,
it's a lot when you consider they had a lot less to have to fill. How many did they bring in last year? Like 39?
Yeah, it was up there. It was like a third of the roster. But you're right in the sense that is that how the portal can help you immensely. When you need help, you can go find it now.
That's especially when you win. When you win, that makes a huge difference. You're a lot more attractive, baby.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's an instant attractiveness for kids now when you win. When you're
love at first sight.
Yeah, when you're kind of iffy, it takes a few in you to get that feeling of hey, that's a pretty good looking opportunity there. But yeah, I think things are on a high note as of right now. I know some people are talking about the schedule. Don't forget, Notre Dame comes on the schedule in 2030, I think it is. That's one. I wouldn't be surprised if Dolson tries to get a Louisville back on the schedule at some point in time, because
John was at, and it's when they make that change, if those games are not as critical to where, like, unless you're Notre Dame, I guess you could lose at home to Northern Illinois and it has no impact, but not many teams have that, have that ability. But it would be nice. Someone just mentioned, maybe it was John again, mentioned, getting Kentucky back on the schedule. But Kentucky already plays Louisville as what I would call their challenging extra non-con. They have 4 non-con games being in the SEC, but they want those other 3 to play Troy, to play Mercer, to play Western Kentucky, to play whomever they're going to play, to get those 3 wins that they want, because Louisville is not considered a win. It's a challenging game. So they're not going to add an Indiana as long as they're still playing Louisville, I don't think, personally.
Yeah. Well, most coaches and ADs right now are going to think one thing, unless you're at Penn State and Ohio State and all the others, is, look, we got to get to 6 wins because we've got to be in a bowl game. So we get those extra days of practice. So that's the mentality. Anything
above the money, baby. Right. It brings in money.
Then
all about the money.
Yeah. Then the other factor of that is anything over 6 wins is just, money in the coffers, so to speak. So that's always going to be the number one thing. Now, if that changes, if something changes and they say, look, you've got to play out of your 3 non-conference games or whatever that amount is as another game with an opposing Power 5 program. So whether that's Louisville, whether that's Kentucky, whether that's SMU, or however it looks, that's when that will change, because they say you got to have one of those for the college football playoffs. But right now, it's not going to be that.
Hey, what's up next for Hoosier Tailgate?
Hey, we're on tonight, 7:30. Going to have Zach Osterman come on. We're going to talk a little bit about this and that and everything in between, and talking about bringing on another host to be with me on the show to soup it up a little bit. Tune in tonight and find out who that may be. There's the tease for you.
Absolutely. Make sure, go to thehoosier.com. That's where you can find Hoosier Tailgate, Coach Griff, et al. Appreciate you, my friend.
All right, buddy. We'll see you.
Absolutely. And I cannot thank each and every one of you. Always our pleasure. Appreciate you guys. Yeah, Ed McMahon, that would be good. We'll be back tomorrow. Loaded show again. Alec Lasley, Todd Leary, Zach Osterman. Let's see, who am I forgetting? I know I'm forgetting somebody, but it'll be a loaded show. We'll get you caught up on everything that's happened this week and what's coming up on the weekend. Appreciate you guys. Hit the like button. Until tomorrow, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.
Hello, everyone. Jim Coyle with Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Thank you, as always, for listening to our content. But for more in-depth coverage on the Indiana Hoosiers football, basketball, and recruiting news, go to thehoosier.com on 3. Now with On 3 and great national writers like Ari Wasserman, Andy Staples, and Steve Wiltfong for football, Pete Nakos, J.B. Shaw, and Joe Tipton's constantly breaking stories on the basketball side. And the local coverage from Alec Lasley, Kyler Staley, and Zach Browning. You can catch something new every day at thehoosier.com. Go there. Sign up today.